Hello everyone! Today's movie tells the story of the struggle of the Pak family against a massive river monster that has snatched the daughter of Kong-do, a simple salesman working in a small shop. Kong-do helps out in his father's shop, and he's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. But when tragedy strikes his family, he steps up to the challenge with the help of his relatives. As the story unfolds, the film shifts from being a horror comedy to a social drama. It's more than just the usual damsel in distress tale. Beyond the monster, there's a secret government plan, some not-so-friendly Americans, a dangerous virus, and a whole lot more. Curious about how all these elements blend together seamlessly? Get ready for a gripping tale as the monster begins its rampage. The movie opens with a dialogue between two people working in the morgue of a US military base in Korea. The senior specialist gets his subordinate, Mr. Kim, to dump a large amount of formaldehyde down the drain. Kim tries to explain that this isn't the right way to handle dangerous stuff like this for a number of reasons. But his coworker ignores the remark and insists on his plan. He tells Kim to pop open the bottles and pour the liquid down the sink. That drain goes right into the full and wide Han River.
Just empty every bottle to the very last drop.
Not daring to disobey, Kim complies. A waft of acrid vapor rises as the formaldehyde goes down the drain. There are around 200 bottles in total. They were sent for disposal just because of the dust on the glass, and probably on a whim of the elderly pathologist who enjoys being in charge. 2 years later, two men are fishing in the same river. They stand with their fishing rods waist deep in the water. One of the fishermen scoops a small, weird creature from the water with his mug and shows it to the other. Trying to catch the mutant with his hand, the fisherman gets bitten and accidentally drops the mug. The creature swims away, leaving the men puzzled. They have no idea what they just fished out. Moving on to the next scene, we witness two men sprinting towards a bridge amidst heavy rain. They try to stop a desperate Yoon from jumping into the water, yet Yoon's resolve has shifted. He peers intently at the water and sees something horrifying. Peculiar circular patterns forming on the water's surface. He checks if the approaching guys also see this unsettling scene. But the two don't see anything like that, calling them idiots. Yoon jumps down into the dark water. In the following scene, we see Kong-do, who works at a snack bar, taking a nap during his shift. Not even the young boy trying to steal something could rouse him, but he is woken up by the elderly shopkeeper, Pak Hee-bong. He strolls over to the stall, gently lifts Kong-do's head to get the change hidden beneath it, and completes the sale. As soon as the customer leaves, his smile vanishes, and he looks at Kong-do with a mix of sympathy and confusion on his face. As the guy opens his eyes, the shopkeeper tells him to start cooking squids. In the meantime, he wonders how Kong-do can sleep so much. Kong-do comes across as lazy and absent-minded, often drowsy. While cooking squid, he even absent-mindedly rips off and eats pieces of it. When he sees Hyun-soo, he rushes over to her, completely forgetting about the squid. In his haste, he stumbles along the way. He completely forgets about the food on the stove, and Hee-bong manages to save it from burning just in the nick of time. The girl turns out to be Kong-do's daughter. She's angry at her father for not coming to the Parents' Day. Her uncle showed up instead. In a rather comical scene, Kong-do tries to hold up the schoolgirl's backpack and explains he didn't go to her school as she didn't pick up her phone. The girl admits feeling awkward about using her old flip phone in front of others and hands the device to her father. To wrap up, she complains about Kong-do's brother, who showed up at the meeting drunk. With a cheerful grin, Hyun-soo dashes over to the storekeeper first, and then excitedly heads into the stall to catch what's on the TV. Inside, Kong-do proudly tells his daughter that he's saving up to buy her a new cell phone. He takes out a box of coins and shows it to her. However, she's a bit skeptical about her dad's sincerity. She then accuses him of stealing money from the change box and threatens to rat him out to her grandfather. This is when we discovered that the elderly man is not only the owner of the snack bar, but also Kong-do's father. The two settle down to watch TV together. One of the channels is reporting that a mutilated body was fished out of the Han River, but Kong-do asks to switch it to a sports channel. They are broadcasting an archery competition in which Hyun-soo's aunt, Nam-ju, is competing. The hapless father opens 2 cans of beer and holds one out to his 14-year-old daughter. The girl refuses. At that moment, Grandpa Hee-bong joins them. At one point, he invites Kong-do to step outside and tells him that the customer's squid was missing a tentacle. He asks if Kong-do might have eaten it. Though the guy denies it, the father sees right through him. Hee-bong isn't the least bit angry and simply hands him a tray with a new squid and a drink. He asks him to take this to the customer and tell them it's on the house. The customers are having a rest by the riverbank when suddenly something peculiar emerges from the water beneath the bridge. The mysterious creature resembles a large bat hanging from the edge of the bridge.
그죠?
The grandpa and his granddaughter are still glued to the TV, watching their famous family member. They're so wrapped up in the competition that they miss the crowd gathering on the riverbank. All eyes are on the bridge, where a mysterious black cocoon has transformed into a creature which slipped into the river. Out of curiosity, Kong-do decides to throw a can into the water. The beast approaches the shore and grabs it with its tentacle. Encouraged by this, others also throw stuff in the water, but the creature seems uninterested in the offerings and swims away. After everyone agrees that it was just a dolphin, the crowd starts to disperse. Suddenly, a fearsome creature, apparently fresh out of the water, starts running along the shore. The creature scatters people in its path, pushing a few into the water with its strong, lengthy tail. One of the girls doesn't notice the panic as she is wearing headphones and facing the other direction. Suddenly, the monster seizes her and tosses her aside. As people scramble for safety, they huddle inside a small pavilion, but the relentless monster follows them there. The ground begins to turn red with blood. Kong-do can't bear to see what is happening and joins forces with a random passersby named Donald to help the trapped people. Together, they open the doors. Some people survive, but most of them are dead. The creature breaks free, runs further down the street, and gets to its new victim at a truck stop. At this moment, Donald and Kong-do grab a road sign, giving it a swing and hurling it at the monster. Donald distracts the creature, allowing Kong-do to approach it from behind and strike it with the same makeshift weapon. The monster gets distracted chasing Kong-do, but it rips off Donald's arm in the process. Meanwhile, the unsuspecting grandfather and granddaughter keep watching the archery competition on TV, but Nam-ju loses at the very last moment. Hyun-so, feeling frustrated, steps outside and gives a can on the ground a kick. Out of nowhere, her father shows up and grabs her arm firmly and pulls her along with him. Terrified people around them are running for their lives, and Kong-do stumbles, collapsing to the ground and accidentally grasping the hand of another girl. By the time he finds his daughter, it's already too late. The creature snatches the girl using its tentacle tail and swiftly leaps into the river, taking her along. It swims to the opposite bank and firmly clamps its jaws around Kong-do's daughter. The shopkeeper, who rushed outside due to the commotion, stands frozen, witnessing the scene in utter shock. The authorities decide to close down the store, and Kong-do, along with Hee-bong, are asked to clear the area. The military and police mobilize their personnel along the riverbank. The people gathered in a special shelter mourn those killed by the monster. Nam-ju arrives there with her bronze medal. Her father and Kong-do approach her, and they cry together. Namil, Kong-do's brother, joins them and blames the girl's father for her death. The family mourns the death of Hyun-so. The old man says that his granddaughter looks a lot like her mother in the last photo. Turns out that the woman left her daughter 13 years ago and never came back. At that moment, Kong-do falls asleep right on the floor, and Namil kicks him angrily. Hee-bong vows to find the creature and kill it. A man in a hazmat suit enters the room. He's looking for those who were at the river during the attack. Namil demands answers from him. Instead of explaining anything, the man in the suit turns on the TV to listen to the news. Seizing the moment, men in similar hazmat suits burst into the shelter and spray some kind of disinfectant around. They ask everyone who was near the monster to get on the buses. Kong-do says that he didn't touch the monster, but he hit it with a road sign and stained himself with the creature's blood. Kong-do is grabbed and taken away, packed in a special bag for transportation. On the TV, the news report finally starts. The host talks about Donald, who heroically lost his arm trying to save as many people as he could. The host also mentions that Donald is a U.S. Marine who's currently getting treated at a nearby hospital. During the report, it's mentioned that the creature can infect its victims with a strange virus through touch. People who catch this virus get blisters on their skin and feel itchy. The old man listens to all of this along with Kong-do's younger brother, Namil. They're all on a government bus, together with Nam-ju. Because of the risk of infection, the military and police officers are withdrawn from the scene. They're replaced by chemical troops and units. The whole family, including Kong-do, is brought to a medical center. They can't go back home and are assigned identification numbers. Kong-do is told not to eat until the morning because they need to run numerous tests on him. But the empty-headed Kong-do isn't happy about this. He discovers a jar of weird-looking canned food and eats a couple of sea creatures from it. Right after that, he starts itching his back. At this moment, his phone rings. Hyun-so is alive and trying to get in touch. but the signal is weak. She says she's in a huge pipe and can't get out. The conversation is heard by all the family members. While the family is stuck in the hospital, two people in hazmat suits drive to an unknown destination and stop in the middle of the road. One of them notices a soaked bill and picks it up. Just as he heads back to the car, he's grabbed by the creature on the ceiling, which then leaps onto the car. It wraps its tail around its prey and takes it somewhere deep into its lair, where there are several bodies and Hyun-soo. The man in the hazmat suit is alive, but he can't stand up. Hyun-soo hides in a drain pipe. At one point, she decides to examine a breathless body in the hazmat suit and pulls out a cell phone from its inside pocket. But the device doesn't work. It's broken and soaked. Meanwhile, Kong-do and his family are at the hospital talking to a police officer. They all try to convince him that the girl is alive, but he doesn't believe them. The officer also refuses to accept a bribe. No words can convince him. He still believes that Hyun-soo is dead and that Kong-do was dreaming and lost his mind over the loss of his daughter. The doctors think so too. The family decides to escape from the hospital. They make it to the parking lot and get into the car of Hee-bong's associates. Yet, in their hurry, they accidentally leave Nam-ju behind. At the very last moment, the brothers manage to pull her into the car just in time. They push the policeman aside and speed away. Hee-bong has to pay a fee for the successful escape and a map of the sewer system. His wallet and all credit card passwords are taken by the collaborators as payment. In exchange, they provide the desperate group of monster hunters with an ambulance car. Inside, they find weapons, uniforms, and a map of the tunnels. The head of the family ends up spending all his money on this. Together, the Pak family makes it past the cordon next to the monster's lair. However, at the last roadblock, a military officer refuses to let them pass. As a bribe, Hee-bong gives him a bucket of change that Kong-do collected to buy his daughter's new cell phone. Kong-do isn't thrilled about it, but eventually goes along with this. Kong-do and his sister venture into the sewers, hoping to find Hyun-soo. Despite their efforts, they come up empty-handed. They keep marking more spots on the map, but there's still no sign of Hyun-soo and no helpful clues. Kong-do worries about accidentally passing on the infection to his daughter, so he tries to disinfect himself, a decision that his brother and sister find ridiculous. They've been mocking him throughout the movie for his occasional drowsiness and lack of sharp wit. Namil, meanwhile, holds a college degree, and his sister is a professional athlete. Still, Namil doesn't hold back from poking fun at his sister too for being slow, which might just explain why she ended up with a bronze medal in the competition. Out of the blue, there's some stirring in one of the tunnels. The family aims their guns into the darkness and fires, yet the monster doesn't emerge. Instead, they see an odd couple, a man and a child, who take cover from the stray bullets. Once the Pak family leaves, the two continue their journey through the sewers. As it turns out, these two vagrants are trying to sneak into Hee-bong's locked store to grab some food. One of them claims he's not stealing, but borrowing, so he asks the younger one not to take the money he found in the store. When the two successfully make their way outside and end up under a bridge, they're attacked by the monster. After the thieves, the Paks also visit their store to get supplies. They make instant noodles, have dinner, and go to bed to continue their search in the morning. Meanwhile, inside the tunnel, Hyun-soo pretends to be dead so that the monster doesn't touch her. The creature brings the couple of vagrants who had robbed her grandfather's shop to its lair. One of them, a boy, regains consciousness, and Hyun-soo hides him from the monster. In the meantime, the family is getting ready to move out, and once again, Kong-do falls asleep at the worst possible moment. The brother and sister are having an argument, while the father steps in to defend Kong-do. He asks the other kids to be kinder to him, and explains that he didn't take proper care of him as a boy, which is why the oldest son turned out not very bright.
니들 강도한테 최대한으로 잘해줘야 한다. 자꾸 뭐라 그러면 안 돼.
The father specifically asks Namil to avoid mentioning the time when Kong-do mistakenly held another girl's hand instead of his daughter's, even if that was the reason they lost Hyun-soo. At this point, Kong-do wakes up and says that the monster is watching the store. The old man turns his head and sees the monster through a gap in the wall. The creature doesn't attack. Hee-bong shoots it twice. The bullets don't seem to harm the monster, and it attacks the store. The noise wakes up the old man's other two children. The monster overturns the store and climbs on top of it. Hee-bong chooses the right moment and shoots again. The Paks cautiously emerge from their hiding spot. The creature is lying on the ground, still breathing. Namil takes a shot at it, prompting the beast to dash away. It skillfully scales the rear of the bridge amid a barrage of gunfire. Eventually, the monster vanishes into the water. Police officers start closing in on the family. With their ammo running out, the Pox make a dash for the truck. The elderly man splits from the rest, carrying Kong-doo's gun, which, as his son mentioned, holds the final shell. He intends to take down the monster. However, Nam-ju steps in, using her bow to fire at the water. One of the brothers pulls the courageous sister into a safe place. At the most crucial moment, Hee-bong aims his gun at the creature and tries to shoot it. It turns out that Kong-doo was wrong, and the gun is out of shells. This mistake cost the old man his life. The monster knocks him out, grabs him by the leg with its tail, and drags him towards the river. The children can't do anything and just watch the unfolding scene. The mutant disappears under the water surface, but this time, it doesn't take its prey with it for some reason. Hee-bong lies motionless on the ground, seemingly dead. As soldiers approach the family, they decide to leave the father on the riverbank and run away to rescue Hyun-soo. Kong-doo remains beside the father's body the longest. He gently covers the old man's face with a newspaper, unable to leave him behind. Eventually, he's apprehended by the authorities. They put a bag over Kong-doo's head and take him away. During the news broadcast, the anchor reports that Donald has passed away due to the virus. The World Health Organization will step in because the Korean government is struggling to contain the remaining 2 infected individuals and the monster. In response, the US plans to deploy a new substance referred to as Agent Yellow. The name is a not-so-subtle hint to the notorious Agent Orange, previously used by the US during the Vietnam War to clear jungle vegetation. The purpose of this yellow substance is to eliminate any traces of biological weapons within a big range. These weapons are suspected to be the cause behind the current crisis, or at least that's what the news is suggesting. However, this approach is not supported by many Koreans, leading to protests. Despite the authorities' efforts, Kong-doo refuses to cooperate and remains in quarantine. Namil is still in hiding. At one point, a mysterious man approaches him and offers to help track the call from Hyun-soo. It turns out that the man works for a telecom company, and he takes Namil to his office. There, Namil explains that he and his sister went their separate ways after their father's incident. There is a group of people hiding out in the next room with intentions to catch the remaining Pox and collect a bounty. Their accomplice is stalling, pretending to search for the password. At one point, Namil finds the password himself while his so-called friend heads back to the next room to join the rest of the group. Namil gets his niece's coordinates from the computer, marks the location on the map of the tunnels, and makes a quick escape. To lose the people chasing him, he causes a power outage, plunging the area into darkness. During his attempt to flee, he accidentally falls from a considerable height. Afterward, he crawls under the freeway and sends a message to Nam-ju. The message includes directions to where she can find her niece. All this time, Nam-ju has been successfully staying under the police radar. Upon receiving a message, she takes her bow to begin her search for Hyun-soo. Tracking down the sewer location, Nam-ju contacts Kong-doo and tells him what she managed to find out. However, her plans take a tragic twist as she stumbles into the monster while navigating one of the tunnels. With a powerful strike, the mutant sends Nam-ju flying into a tight drain. Meanwhile, Kong-doo is placed under quarantine, undergoing tests and receiving sedation. Even though Kong-doo is given anesthesia, it doesn't work as expected. As a result, his neck biopsy is conducted while he is conscious. At this moment, 2 pathologists from the beginning of the movie enter the room. They ask Kong-doo about his daughter. He gives Hyun-soo's coordinates to the American and says that no one is listening to him. Tears well up in Kong-doo's eyes. The medics examine the patient and say that a virus has affected his brain. But then the senior doctor privately informs his junior colleague that Donald, the American Marine who was patient 0, didn't actually have the virus. It turns out that the soldier passed away due to shock after his arm got ripped off. Even the people who were isolated for observation didn't show any signs of the illness. This basically means there's no virus at all. Kong-doo overhears their conversation and gives himself away. They decide to lobotomize Kong-doo to silence him. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo is still in the tunnels with her new friend, Seju. They hide from the monster in a small pipe. Seju, as it turns out, is homeless, and his dead friend was his brother. The kids fashion a rope out of their clothes and try to climb it to get away. However, their plans are thwarted by the mutant. The children quickly hide as the creature regurgitates a massive heap of human bones onto the ground and consumes one of the bodies. Unexpectedly, the monster decides to capture the kids for its next feast. It finds their hiding spot and makes an attempt to attack them. But the creature has no luck. Right at that moment, Kong-do is brought in after undergoing the lobotomy, looking almost like a lifeless vegetable. Yet, this initial impression turns out to be misleading. Suddenly, Kong-do seizes a syringe filled with his own blood and threatens to infect a nurse. He orders the whole staff to lie down and dashes through the open doors ahead of him. Swiftly, he manages to hijack a medical vehicle and speeds away. Namil wakes up beneath a bridge and notices a homeless man's backpack nearby. He gathers some empty liquor bottles lying around and fills the backpack with them. When he tries to offer payment for the backpack and hand over his wallet to the homeless man, he unexpectedly gets hit on the head. However, the homeless man has a change of heart and decides to accompany Namil. They hop into a cab together and quickly whip up Molotov cocktails during the ride. Their main aim is to confront the creature. Meanwhile, street demonstrations against US intervention are underway.
아니 근데 원효대교 북단으로 간다 그랬잖아. 아 힘들 텐데, 저거 봐 저거, 쟤들 다 글로 그런 거야 저거.
Kong-do reaches the bridge and starts searching for his daughter. He calls out to her, but she doesn't hear him. The strange creature has backed off and left the kids alone. Seju has a head injury, and he's not doing too well. Hyun-so leaves her shelter and spots the sleeping monster. She tosses a can at it, but the creature doesn't react. At this point, the girl decides to make a break for it. After running across the creature, she grabs a makeshift rope, but as it turns out, it's not the rope that's holding her in the air, but the creature's tail. The monster slowly lowers the girl to the ground, still sound asleep. With the boy at her side, Hyun-so stands still. She tells Seju to hide. Together, the two children make a dash for cover, but the monster catches up with them. Soon after, Kong-do finds the rope. As he makes his way down, he spots Hyun-su's name tag. He looks up and sees the monster, with the child's arm hanging from its mouth. At the same time, Namju comes to her senses. She takes her bow and goes to look for the creature, and then meets Kong-do. The monster peeks out of the tunnels and sees a huge demonstration. It heads towards the humans. Namil shows up there as well, together with the homeless man. They chase the creature as it swims away across the bridge. A loudspeaker blares, announcing the release of Agent Yellow in Seoul. The announcement mentions that the substance is dangerous for kids, the elders, and pregnant women. Protesters are demanding to stop the spraying. Suddenly, they spot the creature heading their way. Panic sets in, and everyone scatters. While running, Kong-do pleads with the police to avoid shooting at the creature. He then leaps into the water after it. Just then, his brother and sister appear. The yellow substance is released from a tank, causing everyone nearby to faint. The creature also appears to be affected. Kong-do rushes up to the massive mouth and pulls at the hand hanging from it. Hyun-so and Seju fall out of the creature's mouth, but show no signs of life. Kong-do takes the children in his arms. The creature is wriggling in pain. The people around it feel sick as well. Hyun-so's uncle and aunt run up to her and hug her. The monster comes to life and lunges at Kong-do. He grabs a road sign and hits the creature with it. Namil throws a Molotov cocktail at it, but misses. The homeless man joins the fight. He douses the monster with gasoline from bridge support. The fuel even gets into the creature's mouth. However, the last bottle slips out of Namil's hands and falls right behind him. Namju ignites an arrow and releases the bowstring. The arrow hits the monster's eye, setting it on fire. The creature attempts to leap into the water, but Kong-do stands in its way. After the final blow, the monster collapses and perishes. Hyun-so's lifeless body is held by her aunt and uncle, and the rescued Sejo turns out to be alive. Kong-do takes him in, and together, they share a meal at the store, watching TV as snowflakes drift outside the window. Family photos hang on the walls. The news reveals that the virus turned out to be fake news. The movie won many prestigious awards and nominations, as well as a mention in the list of 1001 movies you must see before you die, from the famous film producer Steven Schneider. The story about an American military man dumping formaldehyde into the Han River is actually real. It happened in the year 2000. Interestingly, this person never faced trial in South Korea. The movie is seen by many proponents of conspiracy theories as prophetic and shedding light on the truth about the coronavirus epidemic. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to see even more cool recaps. Meanwhile, tell us in the comments, among all the sci-fi movie monsters, mutants, and deep-sea creatures, which ones do you think could pose as a real threat to us humans?